She gave me just 5 minutes to hand over my daughter before threatening to call the police, not realizing for a second who she was dealing with. The president of the Ho came charging onto my ranch with a group of furious neighbors, her megaphone screeching accusations, branding my daughter a menace. Karen had already ruined 3 families in her quest to grab land, and now she had her eyes on mine. But when I opened that gate and revealed who I really was, her face turned pale as snow. This woman who'd bullied our whole neighborhood was about to realize she had picked the wrong father to mess with. The sun rose behind me, casting long lines across the dry ground of my ranch. I stood on the porch, watching as a crowd assembled outside the gate. Leading them was Karen Prescott, her expensive heels sinking into the dirt as she marched forward. She pointed a polished, manicured finger like she was directing an angry symphony. Behind her, about 20 people had their phones raised, streaming the confrontation. My 12-year-old daughter, Sophia, stood beside me, visibly shaken. Karen's voice cut through the air from her megaphone. "Lucas Harper, I know you're in there. Your daughter let the horses loose in the community gardens last night. That's Ho property she destroyed. I demand action now." I clenched my jaw, noticing Sophia's hands trembling. The truth? We had discovered the fence was cut clean through that morning, a deliberate, careful job. This wasn't a mistake. Someone had released our horses on purpose. And now Karen was out front with her pitchfork-waving crew, ready to blame my child. I placed a reassuring hand on Sophia's shoulder and stepped off the porch, walking toward the gate. The murmuring in the crowd died down as I approached. Phones kept rolling. Karen's smug smile stretched wider as she thought I had no way out. That's when I spotted the official Ho document clutched in her hand, probably packed with bogus citations and threats. 5 minutes, Harper," she shouted, holding up the paper like a declaration of war. "Hand over your little delinquent, or I am calling the real authorities." Clearly, you're not capable of raising her properly. Some people in the crowd nodded, buying into her drama. I spotted Tom Reynolds near the back. He looked uncomfortable but kept his mouth shut. People were scared of Karen, and I understood why. She'd taken 3 families to court in the last couple of years over petty violations, even pushing one elderly couple to sell and leave the neighborhood just to escape her tyranny. I reached the gate and pulled it open slowly. The brass nameplate glinted in the light. "Sheriff Lucas Harper." Silence swept the group. Karen's expression flickered from red-hot fury to stunned embarrassment. "Well," I said calmly, though I was boiling inside, "you wanted to call the cops." "You're looking at him. I am the sheriff of Fairhaven, and I'm telling you now, my daughter did nothing wrong. Someone cut through our fence last night, and whoever did it is going to face charges for trespassing and property damage." Karen tried to recover, her tone rising with faux outrage. "How convenient. The sheriff is covering up his own family's crimes. This is exactly the type of abuse the Ho exists to prevent. Your wild animals destroyed public land and your little brat has to be held responsible." She shoved the paper toward me, her hand trembling with anger. "You have 5 minutes to comply with Ho regulations, or I'll be going straight to the state police. This place has been a stain on our community for too long, and I'm done waiting." I glanced at the document and saw how loosely she twisted the Ho rules to fit her narrative. The timing of it all was too perfect to be coincidence. Behind me, I heard Sophia sniffle, fighting back tears, as Karen kept hurling accusations. That was the moment something changed in me. After 10 years of keeping the peace as sheriff, I knew one thing: bullies like Karen only understand strength. "Listen closely," I said, tapping my fingers against my leg to stay steady. "I deal with criminals every day, Karen, but today, I'm making an exception, because you're not a criminal, just shameless and unethical. And I'm done letting you scare everyone." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phone zoomed in. Karen's face twisted with rage as she realized I wasn't backing down. She spun around and addressed her audience like she was on a stage. "You all heard that? The sheriff thinks he's above the law, shielding his out-of-control daughter while the rest of us pay the price. I won't let this slide." She actually pulled out her phone and started a timer. The beeping echoed across my land like some kind of sick countdown. Despite the ridiculousness of it, my expression hardened as something caught my eye, something that made my stomach tighten. I turned and walked back to Sophia, pulling her close. She buried her face into my chest. Broken bar, I didn't do anything wrong, she whispered through tears. I made sure all the horses were locked up. I swear. I didn't doubt her for a second. Sophia had been helping out on the ranch her whole life. She never made mistakes like that. This was clearly a setup, and I had no doubt Karen was behind it. As I held my daughter, I silently made a promise to the photo of my late wife that still sat on the mantel inside. I would protect Sophia with everything I had. No power-tripping hope president would ever frighten my daughter again. The timer on Karen's phone kept ticking. The crowd stood still, waiting, eyes locked on us. Some looked sympathetic. Most were just eager to capture the next dramatic moment for their followers. 3 minutes. A broken bar. A broken bar. Only a broken bar. The alarm rang out sharply, causing a few people to jump. Time's up, Sheriff, Karen declared with satisfaction. You've refused to comply. I'm contacting the state police to report your incompetence and your daughter's destruction of community property. Let's see if they care more about justice than you clearly do. Later, when I reviewed the footage from our security cameras, I froze. Someone had been creeping around our land the night before, holding something sharp, and the figure looked eerily familiar. The next morning, everything was a broken bar too quiet. After yesterday's confrontation, I left early for the station, needing to review that security footage on better equipment. Sophia was supposed to be safe at home, working on her homeschool assignments at the kitchen table. I had barely settled into my office chair when my phone buzzed with a text from her that made my blood run cold. Dad, Mrs. Prescott is at the gate. She was saying strange things about my future. I'm scared. Before I even finished reading, I was grabbing my keys, instincts on high alert. By the time I tore through town, ignoring every speed limit I usually enforced, I found the scene that made my stomach churn. Karen was standing alone at our gate, holding a thick folder. From the driveway, I could see Sophia on the porch, her phone tightly clutched in her hand. Smart girl. I hoped she'd had the presence of mind to record whatever Karen was saying. As I climbed out of my patrol car, I caught the tail end of Karen's spiel. It's such a shame when promising young girls can't get into any good schools because they have behavioral issues on their permanent record. Karen turned at the sound of my engine, plastering on a fake look of concern. Oh, Sheriff Harper, I was just having a friendly chat with Sophia about her future. You know, as a concerned community member who cares about our youth. She waved the folder in my direction, and I caught a glimpse of school letterhead inside. I've been doing some digging into educational opportunities, and it would be a real tragedy if certain incidents affected her chances. One bad word from a respected local leader could close so many doors. I stepped between Karen and the porch where Sophia stood, my hands balling into fists at my sides. The threat hung in the air, thick and poisonous. Get off my property, Karen. Now, my voice was calm, but inside I was battling the urge to arrest her for harassment right then and there. She stepped back but kept that infuriating smirk. Oh, I'm leaving, Sheriff, just making sure we understand each other. This ranch, your daughter's future, yeah, they're all connected. Such a big place for just two people. I know some wonderful families who'd love to give Sophia a more structured home. Her words hit me like a punch. She wasn't just after my land. She was threatening to take my daughter away. I stepped forward, and Karen hurried back toward her luxury SUV. I'm only trying to help, she called over her shoulder, voice dripping with false sweetness. After all, a single dad with a demanding job, working all hours, leaving a young girl alone. So much of people talk, Sheriff, they worry. She climbed into her car, rolling down the window for one last jab. Think about what's best for Sophia. Sometimes the hardest choices are the right ones. She sped off in a cloud of dust. I found Sophia sitting on the porch steps, tears streaming down her face. Dad, am I ruining everything? Is that why she keeps coming here? The pain in her voice nearly broke me. I sat beside her and pulled her close. Listen to me, sweetheart. You haven't done anything wrong. Mrs. Prescott is a bully who wants our land, and she thinks she can scare us into giving it up, but she doesn't know who she's messing with. Sophia managed a small smile through her tears. She doesn't know you're the sheriff. That's right, I said, though we both understood my badge wouldn't shield us from hope politics. That night, The home meeting was a masterclass in manipulation. I went with Sophia, determined to show Karen we wouldn't be intimidated. The community center was packed. Karen sat at the front, holding court like a suburban queen. She'd strategically placed her supporters around the room, creating an echo chamber for her agenda. When she saw us, her eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "Oh, good, the Harpers are here," she announced. "We can address the unfortunate incident with the horses directly." The meeting was torture. Karen spun a story about falling property values, safety worries, and the need for higher community standards. Every few sentences, she cast a pointed glance at Sophia, letting the unspoken accusation hang in the air. My daughter was a threat to neighborhood stability. Tom Reynolds, usually reasonable, nodded along with her talk about standards, though I caught him shooting worried looks at Sophia. The worst part was watching my daughter shrink in her seat under the weight of veiled accusations and disapproving stares from neighbors. Afterward, as we walked to the car, Sophia was unusually quiet. Finally, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, do I embarrass you? Maybe if I weren't here, Mrs. Prescott would leave you alone." I stopped and knelt down to look her in the eyes. "Sophia Harper, listen to me. You are the best thing in my life. You could never embarrass me. Your mom and I dreamed about you, and every day since you were born has been a gift. Karen Prescott is trying to break us apart because she knows together, we're stronger than she'll ever be." That night, after tucking Sophia in, I called Ryan Caldwell, my deputy and oldest friend. "I need you to dig into Karen Prescott's past," I said without hesitation. "Use every legal resource we have." "Something about her obsession with my ranch feels wrong." Ryan didn't hesitate. "Already on it, boss." Turns out our president has a history of acquiring property through intimidation. "I'll have a full report by tomorrow." As we talked, I found myself tapping my fingers, a habit I'd developed to help think through cases. Karen was playing a dangerous game, but she'd made one fatal error, threatening my daughter. I ended the call and went to check on Sophia again. She was pretending to sleep, but I could see her phone glowing beneath the covers. "Dad," she whispered, "I did something today." When Mrs. Prescott was talking at the gate, I recorded her. Was that okay? My heart swelled with pride. Even scared and alone, my 12-year-old daughter had thought ahead. That was smart. "Sweetheart, we'll talk about it tomorrow, okay?" I whispered. She nodded and actually closed her eyes this time. But just as I was tucking her in that night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You can't protect her forever." 3 days later, Karen Prescott showed exactly how far she was willing to go in her campaign against my family. I was at the station when multiple calls flooded in about a disturbance at my ranch. The dispatcher sounded confused as she relayed the news. "Sheriff, there are news vans at your property." Something about an HO intervention. I didn't need to hear more. Karen had escalated to public humiliation and she timed it perfectly. Knowing I'd be stuck at work, my knuckles went white gripping the steering wheel as I sped home, already hearing the sirens of officers responding to Karen's bogus call. When I arrived, chaos was everywhere, a staged for maximum spectacle. 2 local news vans were parked just outside my gate, cameras rolling as Karen stood with a bullhorn, decked out in a power suit that screamed concerned citizen to anyone who didn't know better. A crowd had gathered, even larger than before, including several uniformed officers who looked uncomfortable. Karen was mid-speech when I pulled up, her voice booming across the property. "That's why I'm calling for official intervention. This poor child is isolated here on this ranch, denied proper socialization and community support. As HO president, I cannot stand by while a child suffers." I parked and approached deliberately, my sheriff's badge shining in the sunlight. The responding officers immediately recognized me, relief washing over their faces. Officer Janet Mills stepped forward, apologetic. "Sheriff Harper, we got a call about a child welfare concern. Mrs. Prescott insisted we check on your daughter." I nodded, keeping my face neutral despite the anger simmering inside. "I appreciate you doing your job, Janet." "Sophia's inside, working on her schoolwork," You're welcome to verify she's safe and well cared for, though I think we both know what this is really about. Karen's voice rose shrill as her plan began to unravel. This is exactly what I mean. He uses his position to dodge responsibility. That badge doesn't exempt him from Ho rules. She turned to the cameras, playing the part of the crusading community leader. I'm trying to save a child here. This ranch violates 12 different Ho codes, creating an unsafe environment for a young girl. Someone has to stand up for what's right. The reporters seemed uncertain now, sensing the story wasn't what they'd been told. One of them, a young woman I recognized from the evening news, stepped forward with her microphone. "Sheriff Harper, would you like to comment on these allegations?" she asked, though her tone suggested skepticism. I looked straight into the camera, years of press experience guiding my words. "What Mrs. Prescott isn't telling you is that she's been harassing my family for weeks, trying to force us to sell our property. She's weaponized the Ho to target a 12-year-old girl who lost her mother 2 years ago. This isn't about safety or community standards, it's about greed and power." The crowd murmured. Some pulled out phones to record my response. Karen's face flushed deep purple as she realized she was losing control of the narrative. "Lies. I had documentation of every violation. This ranch is a danger to our community values," she shouted, waving that same thick folder she'd used to threaten Sophia. 5 minutes. That's all I asked for. 5 minutes of compliance with basic safety standards, and he refused. What kind of father puts pride over his child's welfare? Her dramatic performance was cut short when Officer Mills returned from checking on Sophia, who was calm and composed despite the chaos outside. "The child is fine, healthy and clearly well cared for," Officer Mills announced to the crowd. "There's no evidence of neglect or danger. In fact, I found her working on advanced math and helping prepare lunch for when her father gets home." Sophia stepped forward, her voice small but steady. "Mrs. Prescott has been coming to our house and saying mean things about my dad. She told me I'd be better off living somewhere else. But I don't want to leave my home." The cameras swiveled to capture this unexpected testimony, and I caught several reporters exchanging knowing looks. The mood in the crowd shifted palpably. Where once there was uncertainty and mob mentality, now people looked uncomfortable, even ashamed. Tom Reynolds stepped forward from the back, clearing his throat. "Karen, maybe we should save this for the next home meeting. This seems excessive." I noticed how he nodded along with Karen earlier, but now he seemed to doubt her tactics. But Karen wasn't done. She'd invested too much in this spectacle to back down now. "Now you're all being fooled. I'm the only one brave enough to stand up to his abuse of power. In 5 minutes, I could show you evidence that would change your minds." As the crowd dispersed and news vans pulled away, Karen stood alone at my gate, her perfect hair tousled, her power suit wrinkled from all the gesturing. "This isn't over," she hissed at me. "I'll find a way to prove you're unfit. That ranch will be mine, one way or another." She stormed off to her SUV, slamming the door so hard it echoed across the property. But I wasn't finished digging. That evening, armed with a court order Ryan had fast-tracked, I accessed the Ho's shared email system. Karen had been careless, she'd forgotten to log out of the common account. What I found made my jaw tighten. There it was, plain as day. Email exchanges between Karen and a property development company, discussing commission rates for acquiring the Harper Ranch. She'd been promised a 6-figure finder's fee if she could force us to sell. I forwarded everything to Ryan, my mind already racing on how to use this evidence. "We've got her," I told him over the phone. "She's not just a power-hungry Ho president, she's trying to profit by terrorizing my family." Ryan's voice was grim but satisfied. "I'll prepare the paperwork. She won't know what hit her." Ever had to deal with an Ho president who took things way too far? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. These suburban tyrants think they're untouchable, but sometimes justice has a way of knocking when you least expect it. That night, as I tucked Sophia into bed, she looked up at me with those eyes that seemed too wise for her age. "Dad?" Mrs. Prescott looked really angry today, a broken bar like, scary angry. "Do you think she'll try something worse?" I gently smoothed her hair, keeping my voice steady. "Whatever she tries, we'll be ready, I promise." But the next morning, while driving home after filing more paperwork, my radio crackled with a breaking news alert. Ho President vows to take action against sheriff's family tonight. The morning after Karen's public meltdown, I found Dorothy Bennett sitting on my porch with a steaming cup of coffee and a gaze sharp enough to cut glass. At 65, Dorothy had lived in Fairhaven longer than most, having seen every power play, every scandal, and every bully who thought they owned the town. "Lucas Harper," she said, setting down her cup with deliberate calm, "it's time someone told you exactly what that witch has been up to." I settled into the chair beside her, sensing this conversation was about to change everything. Dorothy had been unusually quiet during the home meetings, but I'd noticed how she watched Karen with barely concealed disgust. 3 years ago, before you were sheriff, Karen Prescott pulled the exact same stunt on the Martinez family over on Elm Street, she began, her weathered hands gripping the cup tight. "Sweet young couple, 2 kids, owned a nice corner lot developers had been eyeing." Karen started with noise complaints, then property violations, and finally called child services. Sound familiar? My jaw clenched as I recognized the pattern. Within 6 months, the Martinses were so worn down by legal fees and harassment, they sold their home below market value. Guess who got a finder's fee from the development company that bought it? I leaned forward, my detective instincts fully engaged. "Do you have proof of this, Dorothy?" She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I've been keeping records, Sheriff. Every dirty trick, every family she's driven out. But here's the catch: Karen's got lawyers, connections from her late husband's business, the few who fought back, buried under lawsuits. She even sued me 2 years ago for defamation after I spoke up at a town meeting. Cost me $5,000 to make it go away." The pieces were falling into place. Karen wasn't just a power-hungry hoe president, she was a calculating predator with a perfected hunting method. Before I could respond, Dorothy's phone buzzed, and her face went pale. "She knows I'm here," she whispered, showing me the message. "Dorothy, we need to discuss your recent activities." "My house, 5 minutes, or I'll be forced to revisit our previous legal matter." The threat was clear, and my protective instincts flared. "You don't have to go," I urged. But Dorothy was already rising, her spine straight with resolve. "Oh, I'm going, Sheriff, but not as the scared old lady she thinks I am. I've got one last card to play, and this time, she won't see it coming." An hour later, Dorothy called me from her home, voice shaky but triumphant. "Lucas, you need to hear this." When I got to Karen's house, she was in full intimidation mode, threatening to destroy my retirement, my reputation, even hinting my grandchildren might have trouble getting into local schools, all because I was exposing her shady real estate deals. I heard the quotation marks in her voice. She gave me 5 minutes to agree to keep quiet, waving legal documents like weapons. That's when I played dumb, acted terrified, even let my hands shake as I agreed to everything. "But here's the beautiful part," Dorothy continued, a smile in her voice. "Karen got cocky, started bragging about how she'd handle your family, said she had something planned that would make you beg to sell, even named developers interested in your ranch. And the whole time, she had her laptop open, logged into the Ho email account. When she went to grab more legal threats from her office, I did something I learned from my grandson. I forwarded several emails to myself. Evidence, Sheriff, real proof of her conspiring with developers to sell property she doesn't even own yet." My heart raced as I realized the risk Dorothy had taken. "That was dangerous, Dorothy." "If she'd caught you," Dorothy laughed, a harsh sound forged from years of suppressed anger, "I'm done being afraid of her." She looked me in the eye today and threatened Sophia. Said that poor child's future would be limited if her father didn't see reason. That's when I knew I had to act. No one threatens children on my watch. I heard papers rustling on her end. "I'm sending you everything now, financial records, email threads, even a recorded phone message from last year where she threatened legal action if I didn't support her Ho plans." That evening, Ryan and I sat in my home office, combing through Dorothy's treasure trove of evidence. "This is gold, Lucas," Ryan said, highlighting another damning email. "She's got the clear patterns of racketeering, using her Ho position to force property sales for personal gain. The state attorney is going to have a field day with this." But even as we celebrated this breakthrough, I couldn't shake the feeling Karen wouldn't go down without a fight. She'd built her little empire carefully, and Dorothy's betrayal would send her into overdrive. We need to be ready for whatever she throws at us next, I warned Ryan. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. The next morning proved my instincts right. Tom Reynolds showed up at my door, looking deeply uncomfortable. "Sheriff, I need to warn you. Karen called an emergency board meeting last night. She's planning something big for the town hall meeting tomorrow. Kept saying she had nuclear options and that your interference with business is abuse of power. She even got me to sign some papers supporting her position, though I'm starting to regret it." His admission made my stomach twist. Karen was building a case against me using the very people she'd intimidated into compliance. "Tom, I need you to think carefully," I said, studying his guilty expression. "What exactly did you sign?" He shuffled like a schoolboy caught cheating. "Something about supporting an investigation into your use of sheriff's resources for personal gain." She said it was just procedure, but the way she smiled when I signed. "I think I made a mistake." "Mistake, Sheriff?" I wanted to be angry, but I saw the fear in Tom's eyes. Karen had that effect on people. She made them so terrified of becoming her next target that they'd throw anyone under the bus just to stay safe. That night, as I tucked Sophia in, she surprised me with her sharp insight. "Dad, Mrs. Bennett came by while you were at work. She didn't stay long. They just dropped off cookies and told me to tell you the Queen's castle has cracks in the foundation." "What does that mean?" I asked, managing a small smile despite the tension hanging in the air. "Dorothy was telling me she'd uncovered more evidence, something powerful enough to finally shatter Karen's carefully built facade. It means we have good friends watching out for us, sweetheart. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." But that night, I found a package waiting on my porch. No note, just a single photo of Sophia at the ranch with a red X drawn over her face. That photo shook me more than I wanted to admit. I'd seen plenty of threats in my career, but when they started targeting my daughter, it hit different. The next morning, running on barely 3 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline, I got the call from the mayor's office. "Sheriff Harper, we need you here immediately. There are serious allegations about misuse of department resources." The formal tone said everything. Karen had made her move and she'd gone straight to the top. I kissed Sophia goodbye, doing my best to keep the worry out of my voice as I promised, "Everything will be okay." The mayor's office was packed with people who should have been on my side. Mayor Patricia Daniels sat behind her desk, looking uncomfortable, flanked by 2 city council members and a woman I recognized as a state oversight investigator. Karen sat off to the side, trying to look concerned, but her triumphant smirk gave her away. A stack of documents lay on the mayor's desk, and I spotted Tom Reynolds' signature on the top page. "Sheriff Harper," the mayor began, clearly reading from prepared notes, "we've received formal complaints alleging you've used department resources to investigate private home matters for personal gain. These are serious accusations we cannot ignore." Karen leaned forward, voice dripping with false concern. "I tried to handle this through proper channels," she said, "but Sheriff Harper has consistently abused his position to intimidate board members and access private records without authorization. I have 17 homeowners who've signed statements supporting an investigation." She pulled out another thick folder, probably full of coerced signatures. "This isn't about property, this is about corruption, plain and simple. No one is above the law, not even the sheriff." As she spoke, I noticed her hand drift up to her neck, fingers brushing what looked like an antique locket. Her eyes briefly glazed over, distant, before hardening again. The state investigator, a stern woman named Angela Morrison, flipped through the documents with practiced efficiency. "Sheriff Harper, did you access email accounts during your investigation?" I kept my voice steady despite the fury building inside. "I accessed those accounts with a valid court order, as part of an ongoing investigation into harassment and possible extortion. Everything was done by the book." But Karen was ready for that defense. "A court order obtained through personal connections, investigating a personal matter. He's turned the sheriff's department into his private security force. Her skill in twisting the truth was masterful. I had to give her that. What followed was 2 hours of bureaucratic torture. Every move I'd made to protect my family was reframed as abuse of power. The security footage I'd reviewed became misuse of department equipment. The background check Ryan ran on Karen was now unauthorized access to private records. By the time they finished, I sounded like a corrupt cop using his badge to fight a petty neighborhood feud. The mayor looked genuinely pained as she delivered the verdict. Sheriff Harper, pending a full investigation, we're placing you on administrative leave effective immediately. You'll need to turn in your badge and service weapon. The walk back to my car felt like a funeral procession. 20 years of service, 10 as sheriff, all collapsing because I tried to protect my daughter from a predator hiding behind an hoe title. I sat in my truck for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel as the reality sank in. Without my badge, I was just another citizen fighting a woman who'd weaponized bureaucracy into an art form. Worse, I knew this was exactly what she wanted. Strip away my authority, isolate me from my allies, then move in for the kill. But even as I said it, I wondered if the truth mattered anymore when public perception had already convicted me. That evening, I found myself in the barn, talking to the horses like they could offer answers. It was something I'd started doing after my wife died, when the silence of the house became unbearable. I promised her I'd protect you, Sophia, I whispered to the old mare, my fist clenched around a crumpled photo of my wife I kept in my wallet. I promised to keep you safe, give you a good life, but I'm failing. Karen's winning, and I don't know how to fight someone who's turned the whole system against us. The horse nickered softly, and I almost laughed at myself. Here I was, the suspended sheriff, reduced to seeking counsel from livestock. Rock bottom felt exactly like this, alone in a barn, badge gone, daughter hurting, enemies closing in. Ryan showed up around sunset, looking as defeated as I felt. Lucas, I'm sorry. I tried to speak up at the meeting, but they shut me down, said I was too close to you to be objective. He handed me a beer, and we sat on the porch in silence for a while. You know what kills me? I finally said, voice rough. I've spent my whole career believing in the system, thinking that if you do the right thing, follow the rules, justice will prevail. Boot to broken bar. Karen showed me how naive I was, I said. She's using the very rules I swore to uphold as weapons against me. Ryan nodded grimly. I failed like this once before, back in the city. Stayed quiet when I should have acted, and a good cop lost everything. I swore I'd never let it happen again. But here we are. Later that night, I stopped by the Ho office to drop off some paperwork they demanded. Through the window, I saw Karen alone at her desk. The sight stopped me cold. She was staring at that locket again, fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside was a photo of a man I assumed was her late husband. Her lips moved like she was talking to him, and I caught her whisper through the cracked window, "This town is all I have left, Robert. All that's left of us. I won't let them take it away." For a moment, she looked less like a predator and more like a broken woman clutching control because she'd lost everything else. Then she snapped the locket shut and her face hardened, returning to the quarterly reports with mechanical precision. I used to think I was strong, I told Ryan when I got back home. Thought I could handle anything. A Marine Corps, 10 years running this department, losing Elizabeth. I survived it all. But this, watching them paint me as a corrupt cop, seeing Sophia cry because of online trolls, feeling this helpless. I failed her. Ryan failed the one person I swore to protect above all others. That admission hung heavy between us, the weight of a father's worst fear. In just 5 minutes at that meeting, Karen destroyed a career I'd spent 20 years building. 5 minutes to break me. That seemed to be her magic number. That night, after Ryan left, I stood in Sophia's doorway, watching her sleep. She cried herself into exhaustion, her phone still clutched in her hand. I gently took it from her, the screen still open to a particularly nasty comment thread questioning if I was fit to raise a child alone. Each cruel word felt like a knife, not because it hurt me, but because it hurt her. Her last search was, am I causing Dad to lose everything? My heart shattered. I closed the door quietly and went to my office, staring at the suspension letter. Tomorrow, suspended or not, I was going to fight back. Karen might have won this battle, but the war wasn't over. But as I walked into the town meeting the next evening, my resolve wavered with every hostile stare from neighbors. Karen stood at the podium, holding up a new document with a smirk. "This changes everything, Sheriff, or should I say, former Sheriff Harper." The Fairhaven Community Center was packed, standing room only, the air thick with anticipation and tension. I stood at the back, and no longer in uniform, but in civilian clothes that felt foreign after years wearing a badge. Karen commanded the podium like a general preparing for victory. Her perfect suit and practiced smile masked the venom beneath. Behind her, the whole board sat in judgment, including Tom Reynolds, who couldn't meet my eyes. Live stream cameras rolled, phones held high to capture what Karen billed as a critical announcement about community safety and leadership. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Karen began, her voice carrying that false sweetness that made my skin crawl. "I know these have been difficult days for our community, discovering corruption where we least expected it. But tonight, I have news to help us move forward." She held up a thick manila envelope like a trophy. "I've been in contact with state authorities about the abuse of power we've witnessed." This document contains sworn statements from 17 homeowners detailing Sheriff Harper's intimidation tactics, misuse of police resources, and most disturbing, concerns about the welfare of his daughter. The crowd murmured as some nodded. Others looked uneasy. I spotted Dorothy near the front, her face a mask of controlled fury. Sophia stood beside me, her hand gripping mine so tightly I could feel her nails digging in. I tried to convince her to stay home, but she insisted on coming. "I'm not letting her win by hiding," she'd said, with a determination that painfully reminded me of her mother. Now, watching Karen weaponize our neighbors' fears against us, I wondered if I'd made a mistake letting her see this character assassination firsthand. Furthermore, Karen continued, warming to her theme, "I've prepared a comprehensive plan to help the Harper family transition. Sometimes, when someone is struggling, the kindest thing we can do is help them find a better situation." She clicked a button, and a presentation appeared on the screen behind her. It showed local real estate listings, family support resources, and most chillingly, information about proper childhood development environments. The implication was clear. She wasn't just after my ranch anymore. She was building a case to have Sophia taken away from me. "I've spent years building this community into something special, something meaningful. I won't let one man's ego destroy what we've created." I felt Sophia trembling beside me and was about to leave when Dorothy suddenly stood. "I have something to say," she announced, her voice cutting through Karen's presentation. Karen's smile flickered but held. "Mrs. Bennett, please wait for the public comment period. We need to maintain order." But Dorothy was already moving toward the podium. Something in her expression made people step aside. "No, Karen, you've had your say for 3 years. Now it's my turn." She pulled out her phone and connected it to the community center's audio system with surprising tech savvy for her age. "Folks, before you condemn Sheriff Harper, you need to hear something," Dorothy said. Suddenly Karen's voice filled the room from a recording. "That old fool Dorothy won't be a problem much longer. Once I'm done with Harper, she's next. Maybe a nice lawsuit over her fence violations, or better yet, questions about her mental competency. These old people don't realize their time is over. This is my town now." The recording continued, Karen's voice growing more vicious as she detailed plans to systematically drive out anyone who opposed her. Gasps rose from the crowd as Karen's true nature was laid bare for all to hear. Karen's face shifted from red to purple to white in mere moments. "That's taken out of context. That's illegal recording. Sheriff Harper put her up to this," Karen shouted, but Dorothy wasn't finished. She pulled out a folder, filled with copies of emails she'd forwarded from Karen's computer, evidence of illegal activity, using her position to secure kickbacks from developers, like the $40,000 she got forcing the Martinez family to sell, or the $15,000 from the Elm Street development. Dorothy started handing out copies to stunned board members. "I sent all of this to the state attorney's office. Real corruption. Not the fairy tales you've been spinning about Sheriff Harper." The room erupted into chaos. Board members shouted questions, demanding to see the evidence. Tom Reynolds stood, his face pale. "Karen, is this true? Have you been taking money?" Karen snapped viciously. "You signed the papers, Tom. You're just as involved as I am. But Tom finally found his spine. Number. I signed papers about an investigation, not this. You're not just wrong, Karen. You're a threat to everything this community stands for. The live stream cameras caught every moment as Karen's carefully crafted empire started to crumble. She grabbed the microphone, desperate to regain control. This is all lies, fabrications. I'm calling the police right now to arrest Dorothy Bennett for theft and Sheriff Harper for conspiracy. She pulled out her phone dramatically, but before she could dial, Sophia stepped forward. My heart stopped as my 12-year-old daughter walked to the front of the room, phone in hand. I want everyone to hear something too, she said, voice small but steady. She looked at me, questioning. I nodded. I had taught her to stand up to bullies, and now she was showing me what real courage looked like. The room fell silent as she connected her phone to the system Dorothy had just used. Karen's voice filled the room again, but this time from a different recording. Listen carefully, little girl. Your daddy's going to lose everything, and when he does, you'll be all alone. Maybe I'll take care of you myself. Wouldn't that be nice? Living in a proper home instead of that dirty ranch? Of course, we'd have to sell that land first. Such valuable property wasted on cows and horses. In 5 minutes, your whole life is going to change, and there's nothing your pathetic father can do about it. Sophia's voice followed, shaky with fear. Why are you doing this to us? Karen's reply was chilling. Because I can, sweetie. Because this town belongs to me, and anyone who doesn't understand that needs to be taught a lesson. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slow clapping started. Officer Mills, still in uniform despite the late hour. Well, that sounds like harassment of a minor, criminal threats, and conspiracy to me. She stepped forward, producing handcuffs. Karen Prescott, you're under arrest. Karen backed away, her perfect composure completely shattered. No, you can't. I built this community. I made it worth something. These people are nothing without me. She stumbled backward, catching her designer heel on a chair leg. The ripping sound of expensive fabric echoed as she fell hard, her skirt tearing up the side. Scrambling to her feet, hair wild, makeup smeared, she looked nothing like the composed Hope president who terrorized the neighborhood. He's the criminal. He's the one who should be arrested. I am the victim here. Karen screamed as Officer Mills cuffed her. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she was led away, still ranting about lawsuits and revenge. Several people recorded the scene. I knew this footage would explode on social media within minutes. The mighty Ho Queen was reduced to a shrieking mess in a torn skirt, finally facing consequences for her reign of terror. As they led her out, I noticed her locket had come undone during the struggle, the photo of her husband visible. Even in defeat, she clutched at it desperately. As the chaos died down, Sophia buried her face in my chest. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Dad. I was scared she'd hurt you if she knew I recorded her. I held her tight, feeling the tension of the past weeks begin to ease. You were brave, sweetheart. Braver than any of us. Dorothy approached, gently patting Sophia's shoulder. Your mama would be proud, honey. You've got her courage and your daddy's sense of justice. But as we left the meeting, finally feeling like we could breathe again, a cop pulled me aside and whispered, Karen's not done. She's planning something big from lockup. Watch your back, Sheriff. The next morning, my phone buzzed like a hornet's nest. Overnight, the videos from the town meeting had exploded across social media. Corrupt Ho president exposed by 12-year-old was trending, with millions watching clips of Karen's meltdown. Comments poured in from around the world, people sharing their own Ho horror stories and cheering Sophia's bravery. I found my daughter at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, wide-eyed. Dad, people are calling me a hero. Someone even started a petition to make me an honorary mayor. I ruffled her hair, feeling a mix of pride and concern. Just remember, sweetheart, real heroes don't do it for the fame. Before I'd finished my coffee, Mayor Daniels called. Lucas, I owe you an apology. The city council held an emergency meeting this morning. Your suspension has been lifted, effective immediately. We want you back at work as soon as possible. Her voice was heavy with regret. We should have looked deeper into Karen's accusations. The evidence Dorothy and your daughter provided shows a pattern of corruption we completely missed. I accepted the apology gracefully, though part of me wanted to point out how easily they had thrown away 20 years of, despite the 2 decades of dedicated service behind me. Right now I had a badge to reclaim and a community to serve. That afternoon, the sheriff's station erupted with cheers as I walked in. Officers who'd been forced silent during my suspension lined up to shake my hand. Ryan had decorated my office with a banner that read, "Justice a better late than never," and there was a cake shaped like handcuffs. "Welcome back, boss," he said, relief clear on his face. "Karen's been busy in jail. She's already gone through 2 lawyers who quit after hearing the evidence. Turns out, threatening a child on tape isn't the best legal strategy." He handed me a thick file. "The state attorney wants to meet with you. They're building a RICO case." Karen's property scheme goes back years. But Karen wasn't done fighting. That evening, Dorothy called with urgent news. "Lucas, you need to see this." Somehow, Karen got a phone in jail and posted a video. She's claiming she's a victim of a conspiracy that you planted evidence and coached Sophia to lie. I pulled up the video, watching Karen in her orange jumpsuit, trying to spin her story one last time, but the comments told the real truth. Her former victims were stepping forward, sharing their stories and posting documents. The Martinez family uploaded their entire file, showing how Karen had systematically destroyed them. The digital mob that had once supported Karen had completely turned. Dorothy wasn't just watching from the sidelines either. The 70-year-old had become an unlikely social media star, and her viral takedown of Karen spreading far and wide. "I've got one more surprise for that witch," she said with a grin. She discovered Karen's old media interviews from when she first became Ho president, full of promises about transparency and putting families first. Dorothy created a masterful video, cutting between Karen's promises and her threatening recordings. The final shot was Karen's arrest, a mascara running, skirt torn, screaming about being a victim, while the audio played her saying, "I am the victim here," to her daughter. 3 days later, I stood in a packed courtroom as Karen faced the judge for her bail hearing. She looked smaller in her jumpsuit, had the perfect image stripped away. Her newest lawyer argued for release, claiming she posed no threat, but the prosecutor was ready. They played Sophia's recording, presented the financial documents, and revealed something new: Karen had been sending threatening letters from jail to witnesses. The judge's face grew colder with every piece of evidence. "Bail is denied," he announced. "Ms. Prescott has shown a pattern of intimidation that continues even from custody." Karen's scream of outrage echoed through the courtroom as guards led her away. The response to our story was overwhelming. Letters poured in from across the country, people sharing their own horror stories. Child advocacy groups reached out, wanting Sophia to speak about standing up to adult bullies. Our ranch mailbox overflowed with supportive messages and drawings from children. One morning, I found Sophia at the kitchen table, tears in her eyes as she read them. "Dad, this girl from Texas says our story gave her courage to report her teacher who was bullying her." I hugged her close. "We helped someone. We helped a lot of people, sweetheart. You showed them bullies can be beaten, no matter how powerful they seem." 6 months later, Karen Prescott was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for racketeering, extortion, and harassment of a minor. She'd finally found a place where her bullying tactics wouldn't work, behind steel bars and orange uniforms. Dorothy took over as interim Ho president, immediately tearing down Karen's ridiculous rules. "Paint your fences any color you want," she announced to thunderous applause. Tom Reynolds, genuinely reformed, proposed new transparency measures. The town was healing, learning from its mistakes. But the best part? What we decided to do with our ranch. "What if we started a writing program for kids?" I suggested one evening as we watched the sunset. "A place where they can learn confidence, stand up for themselves, and just be kids." Sophia's eyes lit up. "Can we call it Freedom Ranch? For kids who need to learn they don't have to be afraid." I thought of my late wife's words, "Protect Sophia, whatever it takes," and realized we'd done more than that. We'd protected each other and the whole community. "Freedom Ranch it is," I said, already imagining children's laughter mixing with the sound of horse hooves. The grand opening was a perfect spring day, with Dorothy cutting the ribbon and Sophia leading the first group of excited kids to meet the horses. The local news covered it, but this time, the cameras captured joy instead of conflict. From Ho nightmare to community dream, the reporter said. I stood watching my daughter teach a shy boy how to approach a horse, her patience and kindness shining through. We'd won more than just a battle against a corrupt Ho president. We'd won our lives back, creating something beautiful from the ashes of Karen's reign of terror. As the town cheered at the ribbon cutting, kids laughing and horses neighing in the background, I looked at Sophia and thought, this isn't the end of our fight, it's just the beginning of something beautiful. What's your craziest Jaya story? Share it below and let's celebrate standing up to suburban tyrants.